This is wild for the Chicago Bulls. We're going to be talking about the recent signing and releasing of Josh Primo. And so this is your host, Rico Greenhowe, and you have found yourself on another episode of Bulls Digest. And so before we go ahead and jump into it, I just want to go ahead and say we are going around the merry-go-round with the Chicago Bulls because they have yet again made a decision that does not make any sense to any of us. And so, yes, as we come off this merry-go-round, it was reported earlier that the Chicago Bulls had went ahead and they signed Josh Primo to an Exhibit 10 deal. Many expected that he was probably going to be competing for the Windy City Bulls, not necessarily a roster spot. Maybe at some point that could have happened. But yes, he is now officially released, as this is per Casey Johnson. And it's very interesting how Casey Johnson words it, because he says, as expected, the Bulls waived Josh Primo per source. He's expected to go ahead and rehab in anticipation of potentially being with the Windy City Bulls. And so I'm saying if the Chicago Bulls knew that he had an injury going into this, why did they go ahead and sign Josh Primo? And if you wanted to go ahead and just send him over to the Windy City Bulls, you did not need to have him on a training camp deal in order to do that. You could have signed him at a later time. And so I just think that a lot of that didn't make sense. And also, too, I've talked about it before, the Chicago Bulls have a lot of guards. At 6'6", I think he's 6'6", 6'4", some places he's listed. I think he had a 6'11" wingspan. You knew that it was still going to be a project for the Chicago Bulls. There was no way that he was just going to come in, command minutes, and be a rotational piece on this team. You had to think that he was going to have to go with the G League route and then perhaps develop on to getting onto the big club and maybe finding a role for himself. But yeah, this makes zero sense. And I don't understand why the Chicago Bulls just didn't try to go out and find maybe a player that worked for them on the wing, or also maybe down in the center position, because that is where the Chicago Bulls need the most help. They need to find some interior presence. They need to get an identity there, and they clearly don't have that. And there's so many trade rumors that have been out there around Vooch, and we have Jalen Smith. And just what are we going to do behind those two players? And so, this is a bit disappointing, I think, as a Chicago Bulls fan. And I think that also, too, we just have to wonder, what is the direction with this club? I'm not sure that I've ever seen this before, where you literally sign a player and then, you let him go within hours later, and you're talking about an injury. And I mean, I'm just thinking to myself, it should not have even been a choice to sign him if there was an injury that was out there prior to him even talking to you. And so I don't quite understand this deal. And I thought before that maybe this was going to lead to something. I was thinking maybe like by picking up Josh Primo, perhaps they were thinking of making a bigger deal. Perhaps there was going to be a trade or something like that. They were going to open up a roster spot, really need some guards. But I guess that when we see this is not going to be the case. So certainly I think that this is very disappointing to see that the Chicago Bulls have went ahead and signed a player only to release him, and then they're going to bring him back into the fold eventually for the Windy City Bulls, which I think was the plan initially. And so, yeah, totally didn't understand that. But yeah, breaking news with Casey Johnson. And so as we shift focus, I think that now we'll look at some of the points from day 3 of the training camp. And so let's talk about just how Josh Giddy and Zach LaVine have been clicking. In fact, I think it was reported by Bulls Central that those two players had actually exchanged numbers after the trade had happened, and they were looking forward to getting on the court. And it seems like both players are really bought into the system. I know I've talked about the fact that Josh Giddey had that injury that nobody really knew about, the ruptured tendon in his ankle, but it looks like he has recovered. He is starting to be out there and starting to participate in drills and things like that, and he's looked pretty good. I have saw some of those videos, so that is a good sign. But I think that, with Josh Giddey and this addition and the fact that they have actually exchanged numbers. It just lets you know that, it's a real need for Zach LaVine on this team this year. And I really think that perhaps he has bought into the fact that the Chicago Bulls are really trying to mend this relationship. And I think that they are trying to now go ahead and take him and elevate him back to where he was. And I think that that is possibly going to happen with him and Josh Giddey on the same page. Josh Giddey obviously gets a player in Zach LaVine who is going to help make him look good on the offensive end. And this is something that Zach LaVine talked about with just being ready for the passes and things like that. So I think that not just Zach LaVine, but really any other starter that is going to be out there with Josh Giddey, they're going to start to get easier baskets, and that's going to go into this philosophy that Billy Donovan wants to play, this faster style. But at some point, we're going to have to eventually knock down some jump shots. And so, just circling back into, this signing with Josh Primo, I thought that maybe also, too, they could have maybe looked to find a shooter out there, somebody who could, maybe come in and knock down some three-point shots. I did mention that they did need some experience to go along with this team, even though it is a younger team. I'm not sure who else is left out there. I know I did mention Markelle Fultz earlier, and I think because the Chicago Bulls are in a situation where they can only give out Exhibit 10 deals, it doesn't make any sense to go ahead and bring a player like Markelle Fultz over because I don't think we could necessarily offer him that type of guaranteed contract that perhaps he's looking for in order to continue on his career. And so, it just really makes us think, do the Chicago Bulls have any other moves left to make? And if they are making them, what direction are they looking to go into? Because, again, this was wild. It's a shocker. Casey Johnson reports that, yes, Josh Primo has been released by the Chicago Bulls. So let me know in the comments what you think. Did you like this signing from the beginning? Did you think that Josh Primo really had a chance to develop with us and at some point be on the roster? Do you think that the Chicago Bulls should still be looking in the free agent market to try to maybe address getting a center or getting a three-point shooter to fit in with their playing style? Let me know in the comments what you are thinking. And before we get out of here, I just want to thank everybody for liking, sharing, and subscribing to the videos. It means a lot to us here at Bulls Digest as we try to reach 5,000 subscribers before the NBA season starts. And, I wanted to let you know, too, as well, that 64.2% of you that watch the videos are not subscribed to the channel. And look, even though we are signing people and then literally releasing them hours later, we have just zero clue with what we are doing as a franchise. I'm still saying, go Bulls, and I will see you on the next one. Peace.